Hello, my name is Matt Whitman. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, and I would like to tell you something that I like about you and what we have here together, and that is that it seems like everybody's just cool with looking at things with our eyeballs and then saying how the things are, and being okay with acknowledging the reality that some people feel differently about the different things. Like that's cool. Thank you. That makes this an oasis on the internet that I get to enjoy greatly, that I get to enjoy every day. And it also makes it so that it's easier to talk about things that are going on in like the right here and right now that it can help us understand better what was going on in the world, the political reality, the social reality against which the story of Matthew is set in the 1st century AD in the Eastern Mediterranean world. The more honest we can be about the realities of what we see going on around us right now, the easier it is to track with all of that stuff. Por ejemplo, it's just not that hard if you are in my country, the United States of America, to have a pretty good sense of what people are going to think about taxes based on a few cues, based on how they vote. Let's just be honest about this thing without any judgment one way or the other. If somebody tends to vote Democratic and they tend to be more optimistic about the effectiveness of central planning, that is gathering funds together and having central political planners make decisions from the top down, they're going to like taxes. They're going to feel like, yeah, more taxes. That's how you accomplish good in society. Because individuals don't tend to make the best decision with their resources. We think that individuals gathered together in a group, in an organization, they tend to make better decisions, so that's the way it ought to be. If you talk with somebody who tends to vote Republican or Libertarian, they're going to be much more skeptical of that proposition in general. They're not going to be as excited about taxes. They're going to be like, no, it's probably better to let individuals hang on to more of their money because they will tend to make better decisions. And if all the individuals are trying to make better decisions with their own money, it's not going to be perfect, but it's better than central planning. And I sincerely mean this when I say it. You do you, like wherever you're coming from on that topic. I like you. We can get along just fine. As I am fond of saying, this conversation we get to have together here is an oasis from the crazy of the internet. We can just talk candidly about how the things are and get along anyway, which I find to be so tremendously life-giving in this day and age. So thank you for that. But here's the deal. In the same way that if you are even mildly politically aware in this day and age, that you can quickly figure out what someone else's attitude toward taxation is going to be, or in the same way that you can ask someone what their attitude toward taxation is and pretty quickly deduce from that what their larger political opinions are going to be. So in Jesus' world in the 1st century AD, you could pretty quickly figure out what other people thought on a lot of other issues by just figuring out what they thought about that question of taxation. And apparently the religious leadership in Jerusalem, who are not having a great go of it in trying to show up Jesus and demonstrate to the observing public how bad an idea it is to follow Jesus, they're kind of getting their butts handed to them left and right here since Jesus is rode into town on this donkey through chapters 21 and 22 of Matthew. They're just trying all kinds of different stuff here, throwing things at the wall, hoping something will stick and discredit Jesus. And they just got 3 parables fired off at them where they all look stupid. Jesus cursed the fig tree. I don't know if the crowds have heard all about that or whatever in chapter 21. But all of Jerusalem seems to have Jesus fever, and ain't nobody got Pharisee fever at this point, and they have to do something about this. Their poll numbers are slipping dramatically. They got to find a way to change the narrative here. They got to let some of that stuff that didn't go well for them slip out of that 24-hour news cycle and get tossed away into the memory hole so we can create some new crisis or issue. And this is how they're going to try to do it. The hot button issue of taxes. Here's what we get. After Jesus tells the parable of the feast of the wedding banquet, it ends with people getting thrown out, weeping and gnashing of teeth. It says, then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. So, okay, verse 15 of chapter 22 spells out pretty clearly what the agenda of this thing is. So we know, if you are a Christian, you would say from the inspired text. If you're a part of the conversation and you're skeptical that there's a deity behind this, then we might say, okay, well, Matthew is ascribing to them these motives. But either way, the narrative frames it as this being an entirely disingenuous question that's coming up. It's not like the Pharisees are really excited to have an earnest discussion about the merits of various fiscal policy matters and whether central planning or individual free market activity is the better engine to drive progress in society and morality and flourishing. Like, they don't care about any of that crap. You got to understand this. This is a sham. There is no debate to be had here whatsoever. The only thing that they want to accomplish is more power for them and the person who threatens that power to go away. So they make an unholy union. It says they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. We'll talk more about them in a minute. Teacher, they said, we know you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by men because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? I just threw up a little bit in my mouth. Come on. If you're here, you're citizens of the internet, unless you live under a rock. And for your sake, in this context, I guess I sort of hope that you do. You are citizens who have been affected by cable news. You know all of these smarmy, disingenuous dialogue techniques that everybody uses to secure power for themselves or their tribe all the time. And if you're like, yeah, the other people do that, it's awful, then you are caught up in it. You're not seeing how things actually are. Your tribe does it too. My tribe does it too. It's revolting when we see it, but it's very difficult to detect it when people are using these kind of techniques in service of things we like. Here, thankfully, we're far enough historically removed that we can just see it and be appropriately repulsed by this repugnant buttering up and framing that's going on. Look at the way they just walk into the conversation and overtly lie. They're trying to kill him. They don't think he's good. If they thought that he was good or from God, they could have just directly answered his question back in chapter 21. If they thought that he was good or from God, they could have said, wow, look at what all the children are saying about who you are. That's so exciting. Could this be the Messiah? They're not entertaining that at all. All of the context, whether from a sympathetic to Jesus perspective or a not sympathetic to Jesus perspective, every bit of context we're seeing here, every bit of reason about their motivations corresponds with what we just saw in verse 15 about they're laying traps. They don't mean any of this, so they're lying in front of everyone. You speak in accordance with the truth. High integrity. Well, do you kill people who speak in accordance with the truth and are high integrity and teach the way of God? Well, I guess I just kind of talked myself into a corner here because historically what we see from power mongers is, yes, that's exactly who you kill. You don't kill people who will go along with the lies. You don't kill people who tacitly affirm the dishonest approach to everything that you're taking. You don't kill people who play along with the party line and repeat the things that are the exact opposite of what your eyes see and your ears hear. Those people, they're willing to play ball. They're willing to get dirty with you. They're willing to make you rich while you make them rich through dishonesty. No, you kill the person who walks in and is like, look at the thing. That's exactly what the thing actually is. That emperor has no clothes. What? How dare you say that about our beloved emperor? That's an outrage. No, look at him. Like, look right there. And his midsection is even pixelated. Like, that dude is definitely butt naked. He has got no clothes on. That is madness. And we will ask you nicely one last time to quit saying those things that are definitely false and start saying things that the emperor's clothing status experts have all agreed upon. Now we'll give you one more chance. Is he wearing clothes or not? And probably a bunch of you are like, oh, he's picturing some specific thing going on in society. I'm really not. I'm just picturing how humans are and how we interact with truth at the public level. The person who comes along and says, this is how things are, and it smacks of truth, is the person you have to make go away. And that's exactly the trajectory we're on here. So this isn't a genuine question. They don't really want to get to the bottom of this question of taxes. Why would they go to him if they actually did want to get to the bottom of this? They're the ones who have all the political authority and power. That's an internal conversation for them. No, they're trying to get him to do is to weigh in on something that's impossible. You know this technique, the one where someone disingenuously invites someone in to a topic acting like we're just going to have an honest conversation about a thing, but they already have read the lay of the land. They've already sowed the seeds of there is no right answer to this question. And no matter what you say, you're going to get burned down by this. And then the people who initiated the conversation, they'll just have to shrug and be like, who could have known? Why would the people do this to you? We just wanted to talk about it. I mean, I'm sorry it happened. There's nothing we can do to stop them now, though. They're so upset. Look, it's easy to imagine that the political brokenness, the breakdown of the dialogue is something that's really new and really exclusive to us in the cultural West right now. To imagine this is the worst it's ever been. The reality is this is not the worst it's ever been. And the political powder keg that was the first century in the time of Jesus is at least as volatile as what we're dealing with right now. Remember, just a few decades after this conversation on the spot where it's happening, Roman legions rolled in and pulled apart the temple brick by brick, all but one tiny little wall of it. This situation was already in meltdown, and it was headed for going completely nuclear, which it did. So understand that as we work through this passage, I am definitely in agreement with Matthew's assessment. I think this is totally disingenuous. I've seen these kind of moves. You've seen these kind of moves in dishonest conversation that happens in the here and now. I'm going to be operating from that assumption and definitely interpreting Jesus' response to the question he's being asked in light of the assumption that Jesus sees through this charade as well. Thank you, regardless of your political or philosophical persuasion, for being up, for having a relationship together that is different than what is allowed in most places and most conversations around the internet right now. I really like you. I'm Matt. This is the 10 Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.